All right, hey everyone, welcome back to the RotoPros pre-lock DFS show for Friday night. It's going to be pretty hard to have strong convictions tonight because we've got 14 games on the slate and a lot of pretty comparable choices, some weather to worry about, some kind of strange lineups. So where to start? I guess the place always to start, I think, is the high-end pitching options. And they're all, I mean, it's three good pitchers, but I think there's really only one guy that makes really any sense for tonight. So to start with the two guys I'm ruling out, Chris Sale is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He at times has been the best DFS pitcher in baseball, one of the best strikeout pitchers in the league, but he's been a little bit worse this year. I'm not overly concerned about that. The thing I am concerned about is the Blue Jays lineup. So it's 9 righties, including the switch hitters who get to bat from the right side of the plate. The Blue Jays lineup also is just better now than it's been at any point really at all season. Josh Donaldson was out for quite some time. He's back. And when Donaldson was playing earlier this year, they didn't have Teoscar Hernandez, and he's actually become one of their best hitters. So I think this is a pretty difficult matchup for Sale. The only notable guy that's not playing for the Blue Jays is Steve Pearce, who's on the DL. But Hernandez is a better hitter than Pearce anyway. And I don't know what to make too much of guys like Anthony Alford and Lourdes Gurriel and Luke Maile, but they are all righties, and Sale is definitely expensive. It's a road game, so there's a downgrade there. It's a hitter's environment in Toronto. So I think Sale is just too expensive. And looking at the Vegas line here, we've got an 8.5 over-under, which is a lot higher than what we usually see for games with Chris Sale. The Red Sox are only about -175 favorites. So the indications from Vegas are that Sale should do fine. He probably gets a win, but I think his price is just going to be too difficult to pay off. So he's a complete fade. The other guy who's a complete fade also, and it may be a little bit surprising, is Justin Verlander. So on the surface, it looks like Verlander has the easiest matchup of the high-end guys. He's facing the Rangers at home. Houston is normally a strong pitcher's park, but the roof is expected to be open tonight. I think it is officially open, and it's going to be warm. It's going to be humid. Wind is blowing out to left field, and the Texas lineup just isn't as bad right now as it's been all year. So Elvis Andrus is out, but they've gotten a couple guys back. So let's see. Hold on 1 second. I'm just change the lighting here. Okay. Fixing some technical things. So Adrian Beltre is back off the DL, and that's a big upgrade for Texas for sure. The other notable guy that's back is Rougned Odor. He's not really a good hitter, but he's definitely better than Isaiah Keener Falefa, or Kinsler Falafel, if you want to call him that. Delano DeShields was out for some time. He's back too. So the lineup now of DeShields, Chu, Mazzara, Beltre, Gallo, Profar, Odor, Chirinos, and Guzman. Like, I think that is actually a decent offense. Maybe it's an average offense. This is no longer a plus matchup, I think, for Verlander, aside from the fact that he's at home. And using last year as a reference point, the Rangers dealt with a ton of injuries last year too, and they still finished around middle of the pack in WRC+. They had a 95 WRC+ against righties. The only guy they're missing right now is Elvis Andrus, but he's not a great hitter anyway. He's just a good hitter for a shortstop. He had a strong start to the season, but relative to last year, I don't really think this is some bad lineup. I think it is actually as good, if not better, than what they had on average last year, and they did finish middle of the pack on offense last year. The other problem with Verlander compared to Sale and to Max Scherzer is that Verlander is just far less good than those guys. So for the year, Verlander is at 11.7 Ks per 9 and 1.8 walks per 9. Really, really good strikeout to walk ratio. His swinging strike rate at 14%, I think, is a little bit unsustainable. Maybe his strikeout rate should come down a little bit. But the other problem for Verlander is he is not getting any ground balls. He's at 27% ground ball rate. And with the hitting conditions being favorable, there's more potential than usual for home runs. So again, the Vegas line certainly supports this. The over-under for this game opened at 7.5, and even with the public betting the under, it's actually jumped a full run up to 8.5. And the public is heavily biased towards the Astros side. I think this is a plus matchup for both offenses. But yeah, definitely overvalued pitchers in this game. 56% of the bets right now are on the under, but the line is still moving very heavily to the over. So it's a very strong signal that sharp bettors are on the over for this game. I think both offenses are underrated here. So I definitely am off Justin Verlander too. I actually think Chris Sale might even make a little bit more sense than Verlander, but I really don't like either of these guys. So the pitcher that I'm definitely targeting here is Max Scherzer. He's in Arizona, which is normally a hitter's park, but in Arizona tonight we have the roof closed. So I think that kind of neutralizes it. One of the other things with Arizona we've been worried about recently is the return of Steven Souza. He's out of the lineup tonight. And then A.J. Pollock is also out of the lineup tonight. So the only really good hitter on the Diamondbacks tonight is Paul Goldschmidt. David Peralta is decent too, but this is a really weak lineup. It's also a National League game, so Scherzer's going to be facing the pitcher spot. Even at 13,300, I think Scherzer is the best of those three guys between Verlander and Sale. He has, I think, definitely the easiest matchup. So he's not an all-in play, but I think in lineups where you're spending up at pitcher, he's the guy to use. Like, I will not have Chris Sale or Justin Verlander whatsoever, and I think Max Scherzer is someone to have in a vast majority of combinations. So it did seem a little bit trickier when looking at it last night, how to distinguish between those three guys. But I think at this point, it's become more clear where Scherzer is the best play, even as the most expensive guy, and he's a far better option than Verlander and Sale. So the next tier of pitchers, well, I'm kind of skipping over the mid-tier. There are a lot of guys priced between 7,000 and 8,000, maybe 9,000. Trevor Bauer at 11,300. I think all of these guys are just fades. Jake Arrieta is pretty overrated. I think Faria and Gausman are priced up way too much. Jameson Taillon just hasn't been getting strikeouts. So I don't really have much interest in any of these guys. The next pitcher I do like, though, is Marco Gonzalez, priced at 7K. So I'm just going to pull up Marco Gonzalez's numbers here, because his strikeout rates and his swing strike percentage, it's just he's been off the charts with his ability to get swing and misses this year. So let's see what we got for Marco Gonzalez. 9.9 Ks per nine, 1.6 walks per nine. He's a 5.19 ERA, but he has a 3.08 FIP and 2.74 xFIP. His swinging strike rate is 8.9%, which isn't as good, but he's just throwing the ball in the strike zone a lot. He's throwing a first pitch strike 70% of the time. Batters aren't swinging as much as they should be on his pitches in the zone, so he's doing well with called strikes. But I think his strikeout rate should regress some. Like if he were a close to 10K per nine pitcher, then it would be an absolute no-brainer to use him outside of the weather concerns. I'll get to that in a second. But even when Gonzalez's strikeout rate regresses to maybe 8Ks per nine or something like that, against this Tigers lineup that doesn't have Miguel Cabrera, I still think it's a good matchup. So the main reason to not use him here is the weather. We have no idea if this game will even play at all. So Gonzalez isn't my second favorite pitcher or anything like that behind Verlander. I mean behind Max Scherzer. I'm just mentioning him here as I go down in decreasing order of price. But I think Gonzalez is a good play if the weather holds against a really bad Tigers lineup, even though they are playing 9 righties. But Gonzalez is not a priority. I think there are 2 cheaper pitchers that I definitely like more than him. Let's see. So I think I skipped over. I think I forgot what his price was. Yeah, Luke Weaver, 7,900. Okay, he's more expensive than Gonzalez. Weaver has been a target of ours, I think, in every single start this year, and he has been a huge letdown in just about all of them. But it's the Padres. It is a road game, but it is the Padres, and they're a bad offense. They strike out a lot. Weaver's numbers for the year still are decent. 8.15 Ks, 3.8 walks. So it's not bad peripherals. His swinging strikes are down from last year at 9%, but I think overall Weaver is just a slightly above average pitcher. And there's room for upside here, considering how good he was last year, considering his status as a prospect. His minor league numbers were great. His brief stint in 2016 where he made 8 starts, he was really, really good. So don't sour too much on Weaver here because he's definitely had some bad luck with batting average on balls in play, with not being able to get out of jams. Like, for instance, against the Cubs, there were some bunts and infield singles where they tried to get the out at home and just couldn't get it. And all of those things have just inflated his ERA, made his pitch counts go up. He hasn't been able to go deep in games because of bad circumstances. Weaver isn't even allowing home runs. So it's a lot of singles against him, and it's just not something that should continue. So in a plus matchup with his price way down compared to, like, well, for reference, Miles McCollum was priced at 10,200 last night. Weaver is probably a better pitcher, and he's substantially cheaper. So on that alone, there's definitely value here. But I think Weaver has just been way underachieving, and he's priced down because of the ERA, and there's definitely value on him. So I think Weaver and Scherzer are probably my second and third favorite pitchers tonight. The first guy, I'm just trying to figure out if there's anyone I need to cover before I get to the most random pitcher that I've selected all year. Although I do think it makes plenty of sense. I guess that's why I'm doing it. Just going to check for a couple more lineups and get to this last pitching option. But I really do think a narrow focus at pitcher tonight makes sense. Like, I don't think I'll end up with much of Marco Gonzalez because of the weather concerns. The Tigers are playing All right. Are we back? Let's see if we're back. Hopefully we can get some responses here. Good to go? Is that what that yes is for? Awesome. Okay, now I can talk about Lance Lynn again. I get to do this twice now. If the audio is still coming through for some of you, then you heard this already. But I'm going to do it again for those who didn't get it. And also, I just really want to talk about Lance Lynn today. Because he's just, I think, I don't know. When the plays are this unique, it's just more exciting. So Lance Lynn against the Angels is my favorite pitcher on the slate. I think Scherzer and Weaver are number 2 and 3, with Gonzalez being number 4. With the weather concerns, I think you can just avoid Marco Gonzalez if you didn't catch that at the end of my rant about him. I think it really is just a 3-pitcher night. So Scherzer and Weaver, those are my number 2 and 3. Lance Lynn for the year is striking out 10 batters per 9 innings and walking 7. So there's clearly upside, but there's also clearly downside because the walk numbers are through the roof. But I think the strikeout numbers are sustainable with the 11.6% swinging strike rate. But the real issue here, the real benefit for Lynn is that he is really good against righties and really bad against lefties. And the Angels offense is very, very heavy on righties. They have basically 3 lefties that play ever in Luis Valbuena, Cole Calhoun, and Shohei Ohtani. They rarely ever play more than 2 of them on the same night because if Ohtani's playing, it usually means Calhoun or Valbuena isn't playing. And Ohtani played last night, so I think he'll probably sit. So it should be 7 right-handed batters. And for the year against righties, now I can actually pull up the numbers. This should be better this time. Lynn is at 11.4 Ks per 9 versus righties with a 390 FIP and 406 xFIP. So even with the high walk numbers, he's actually been very good against righties. For his career, it's a lot of the same, but I'll just use last year as the primary reference point. So Lance Lynn, last season versus righties, 8.4 Ks per 9, 2.2 walks per 9, 354 FIP, 375 xFIP. So Lynn is actually a good starting pitcher against right-handed batters. He is a train wreck against lefties. But because the Angels are so heavy on right-handed batters, I think he actually should do well against them. It actually sets up as a decent matchup, despite the fact that the Angels are a good offense because of these really extreme splits of how Lance Lynn normally pitches. So the other thing with Lance Lynn is his price. It's only $5,000. So he doesn't really need to do very much to hit value, but I also think there's a lot of upside because Lynn is actually a reliably good strikeout pitcher against right-handed batters. And I mean, even though the Angels offense is good, it's very right-hand heavy. So I will again refer to the Vegas lines for some reference here, waiting for those to load. And this is really great. The internet is actually working now. So the Angels opened as -175 favorites. It's down to -165. So it's a reverse line move for the Twins with 75% of the public betting the Angels side, yet the line is still falling towards Minnesota. The over-under is the more notable thing here, where it opened at 8.5 and it's down to 7.5, despite the fact that 75% of people are betting the over. So sharp money is very, very strong for Lance Lynn tonight. I think it's mostly because of the right-handed splits, but also he's definitely underachieved on the whole this year. Like Lynn is usually a decent pitcher. His ERA is the last few years, 3.43, 3.03 in 2015. He was hurt in 2016 season, 2.74 the year before that. First career, he's a 3.49 ERA, 3.69 FIP, 3.92 xFIP. There's no reason to think he's gotten too much worse. He just has developed these splits where he's really bad against lefties. But he's facing a lot of righties tonight, so I actually think he should do well. And I think his price is way too low compared to his probable expected output. So there's clearly downside because the Angels offense is good, but I think the matchup actually sets up really well. And yeah, Cole Calhoun has not been very good. So let me just check one more time for a lineup here, and then I will move to offense because I don't think the Angels have actually put out their official lineup yet. Okay, thank you, internet. It's been quite a struggle today. All right, well, Ohtani is in there. Okay, that hurts a little bit. Ohtani is playing, Valbuena is playing, and Calhoun is playing. They're resting Pujols. That definitely is annoying. Albert Pujols is probably the worst hitter on the Angels. So yeah, this just kind of sucks. I still like Lance Lynn, but with Ohtani playing over Pujols, that definitely makes things worse for him. Let me just double check to make sure that's actually what's going on, because we have had some issues with Ohtani's name being messed up on Baseball Press. I think it was Logan. You had I don't remember what the weird name was that was in Ohtani's place in the lineup, but there was some strangeness going on. It does look like it's right, though. Ohtani is batting fourth in place of Albert Pujols. So that hurts Lance Lynn a bit, but I still think he's a better play than Weaver and a better play than Scherzer dollar for dollar. With this news, though, I think Scherzer will end up being my highest owned pitcher, and I think that Lynn will be number 2 and Luke Weaver will be number 3. And those still really are the only 3 guys I like too much. I think you can mix in Gonzalez if the rain holds up, but I really don't like any other pitchers. And especially because there are so many offenses to choose from, I think a narrow focus at pitcher just makes more sense tonight. Yeah, I don't know what that name is, but it's not that guy. It's Ohtani for real this time. All right, so let's do offense. We've got a lot of good spots, a lot of bad pitchers. So starting with the most obvious game, we have a Coors game tonight. Chad Bettis and Brandon Woodruff. And the over-under for this game is 11.5. So there should be a lot of runs. Chad Bettis has an ERA around 2 or so, but his peripherals are kind of just the same as they always are. So I don't know if people are really going to be on the Brewers tonight, and I definitely like the spot for them. So I think the Brewers are potentially my favorite offense. They're just better also than the Rockies, and I think Brandon Woodruff is a better pitcher than Chad Bettis. So yeah, it's Brewers over Rockies. They're also cheaper. I think that just kind of makes intuitive sense. And this could also be a Josh Hader game because he hasn't pitched in a little while. There's always reason to be fearful of stacking against the Brewers when Josh Hader is lurking. He just strikes out every batter, basically. So Brewers over Rockies, but I think you can mix in the Rockies as plugs. I won't be stacking them, but I think Brewers stacks definitely make a lot of sense. Other stack spots, and I'm kind of just going to list these off because it's really hard to figure out who the best ones are. And I think for multiple lineups, you just play a few of these, just make different combinations. The Yankees are getting Kendall Graveman at home. It's fairly obviously a good spot, although I don't love the stack too much with Gary Sanchez out of the lineup. And Graveman is kind of, I think he's a bit underrated. Like, he's a ground ball pitcher. He usually has peripherals in the mid to low 4s. And I mean, there's potential for him to get lit up. He's probably just mediocre, but there's also potential for him to just get a lot of grounders and keep the ball in the park. I think he's very similar to Kyle Gibson, who dominated the Yankees a few weeks ago. I think they're almost identical pitchers. So I don't love the Yankees. I think they're going to be pretty chalky. I would include them as, I don't know, kind of a secondary stack in some lineups, but I actually do prefer the Brewers to them. But it's certainly a good spot for the Yankees. I mean, it warrants consideration to use the Yankees anytime they're playing at home, and it is a bad pitcher. The A's don't have a good bullpen behind Kendall Graveman. The issue is just there are other good spots. Like, if this were a smaller slate, I think most of the time the Yankees would be the best offense to use. And I think they were initially priced to face Trevor Cahill too, so there's a little bit of pricing value because of that. Just kind of thinking about ownership here. I'm not sure if it's going to matter because there's 14 games. Like, the Yankees shouldn't be too chalky. I think the Coors game actually will have more ownership. But yeah, it's just it seems like a fringy play to use the Yankees tonight compared to some of these other spots where there might be some more upside. So I think the Brewers are a better pick than the Yankees, but they're fairly close. I think Bettis and Graveman are similar pitchers, and the Yankees are obviously a better offense than Milwaukee, but one game is being played at Coors Field and one isn't. So that's the deciding factor for me. The other really good spot, the Dodgers are facing Matt Harvey, and Matt Harvey is arguably the worst pitcher in the league. The Dodgers are also not that expensive. So from a value standpoint, the Dodgers are the best team to use dollar for dollar. We will not have their lineup probably until after lock, But I think we can assume Chris Taylor is going to be playing, Grandal is going to be playing, Bellinger is going to be playing. It could be Jock Peterson or it could be Alex Verdugo. Verdugo might have been sent down though. Let me just double check that. But we're going to have to guess because I would imagine the Dodgers lineup isn't out anytime soon. If anyone has info on that, definitely let me know. But okay, Verdugo is down in the minors, so that is helpful. Yeah, Jock Peterson should be starting, so I think it makes it a little easier to figure out who's in the lineup. So Jock Peterson, Chris Taylor, Cody Bellinger, Yasmani Grandal, those are the primary targets from the Dodgers. I think Puig is a decent play. I would imagine Matt Kemp and Chase Utley start. I think they're fine for stacks, but Bellinger and Grandal are going to be the guys I use the most because just of how the positional fits work. There aren't really too many first basemen on these other teams to use, and with Gary Sanchez out, catcher is a pretty thin spot tonight. So definitely heavily targeting Bellinger and Grandal. The other offense I like a lot, and they're going to be pretty low owned, I think, despite how good they were last night, is the Baltimore Orioles. So Jacob Faria has not been good this year. The reason that we've targeted him on occasion is because he's had good matchups and he's been really cheap. But Faria's numbers are not particularly good. He's fly ball prone. Let me just get them specifically so I can have something more tangible to refer to. Let's see. Okay. Faria, 4.15 ERA, 4.40 FIP, 4.81 xFIP, lots of fly balls at 36% grounders. He's walking over 4 batters per 9 innings. And Faria's numbers last year looked pretty good, but he was much better in the first half of the year and much worse in the second half of the year. I think his velocity was just higher initially, and it kind of just decreased as the season wore on. But he has certainly not been very good this season. I think he's just kind of a fringe prospect. The Rays have a bad bullpen behind him. And this Orioles lineup is still cheap. It's a strong hitters environment in Baltimore, and Mancini and Jones are actually cheaper than yesterday. Scope's the same price. I think it's a very comparable matchup to what they saw against Ian Kennedy, and the prices are all the same. So there's not too much reason to think of this any differently. Manny Machado is still priced below 5,000. So I actually think the Orioles are a comparable stack to the Brewers and to the Dodgers. Those are my 3 favorite offenses, and the Orioles should be pretty contrarian. There's one more offense I have in this category, and it's difficult because there really are a lot of teams to like tonight, and that's part of the reason I want to really narrow the pitching focus. But the Houston Astros are very cheap against Cole Hamels, and I still don't think Cole Hamels is very good. Springer, Altuve, and Correa are all priced below 5,000, and like I mentioned before, the roof is open, it's humid, the wind is blowing out, really good hitting environment. And Hamels has been getting more strikeouts this year with his decreased velocity, but he still is, he's still very homer prone because he's throwing slower. I think that's the bottom line with Hamels. I will pull up his numbers here because this is probably the last thing to cover, and then I'll just summarize. Again, apologies to whoever missed some of this because of the technical issues. But it does seem like everything has been resolved. So... okay, Cole Hamels for the year striking out over 10 batters per 9 innings. He is getting swinging strikes at a 12.3% rate, but he's also giving up 20% home run to fly ball rate. He's not getting too many grounders. His hard contact rate is 46.5%. I think it still is a little bit gimmicky that Hamels has managed to get this many swings and misses, and he should regress going forward. But even with the early season success, he has a 496 FIP and a 399 xFIP. So the Astros offense is just really good. They're at home. They're in a hitter's environment. And if Hamels starts pitching more like he did last year, it's going to be a complete disaster for him. So I think the Astros are on par with some of these other offenses that are in good spots. And I'm just going to kind of look here to see if there are any other offenses worth using. But yeah, this is a fairly difficult slate just because there are so many choices that are reasonably good. I'll mention one notable fade, and that's the Indians, who are in a game with really bad weather, and there could be a chance for a late game stoppage. So that would be why I'm kind of off Cleveland. That's probably it for teams that need to be mentioned for not using them. So, all right, summarizing the slate, I think Scherzer is the guy to have the most of. I think Weaver and Lynn are the best cheaper guys to pair with him. I think you can make some Weaver with Lynn lineups to pay up for a lot of offense, but I think nearly all in Scherzer does make sense considering the matchup with Pollock and Souza out of the lineup and with the roof closed in Arizona. And then for offense, I think there are 4 primary stacks I like. It's the Dodgers, the Orioles, the Brewers, and the Astros. And then I kind of want the Yankees and Rockies mostly as plugs mixed into those stacks. So just kind of letting that sink in because I'm doing this on the fly too with so many games to cover. It's really hard to narrow it down. We've got lineups coming out as we're doing this, obviously. But I think it's 3 key pitchers with a focus on Scherzer, and then 4 main offenses with the Yankees and Rockies as plugs, and that is going to be it. All right, so let me know if there are any other questions or teams you want me to cover or pitchers you want me to cover. But I think that we've pretty much got it. All right. Well, again, hopefully you caught everything you wanted to with all of the internet issues. But good luck tonight. Thanks for watching. All right, I'll wait for some typing questions. Just hold it. Dan is holding up the end of the show. Do we even done? I'll check for a Dodgers lineup one more time. We'll see if we have that, and then I'll hang this up. Sonny Gray. No, that's definitely worth mentioning. Yeah, I think Sonny Gray is in a very similar category to Marco Gonzalez, where his ERA doesn't really match the kind of pitcher that he is. I think he will be better going forward. I think he could be an okay guy to mix in after the core guys that I like. His price definitely is a little too low for a game where he's very likely to get the win. And Gray, I think, should just start pitching better going forward. I think the Yankees had him throwing not nearly enough fastballs for some reason his first few starts. And then you saw last start against the Indians, he was very good mixing in his breaking balls more. Mixing in his fastball more with the breaking balls, which is kind of weird that he was pitching backwards so much. But the A's offense is just really good. And that's really the main concern for me, is just how good their offense is. So, I just prefer Weaver and Lynn, and I prefer Marco Gonzalez if the weather is okay there. But if you're making enough lineups, Gray would be my next favorite choice. I think he is the next best play after those guys. So I think he's just kind of a fringe play for me, but I don't think he's a bad choice at all. I think he's fine. So, all right, I think that will officially do it. Just going to check lineups one more time, make sure we got everything. Yeah, RotoGrinders lineup page had Shohei Ohtani listed as a right-handed batter. More evidence that you should go to the RotoPros lineup page and get what we have, because, well, I don't know if it's actually right, but I would assume that it's right. RotoGrinders screwed up today. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Good luck tonight. I don't think I'll have one of these tomorrow, but probably back on Sunday, and then definitely for next week. So see you all then.